A tweet from Tekken's GOAT has the people riled up, and you add the recent balance patch, and well, it's a recipe for disaster. On October 28th, Arslan said, "The state of Tekken is extremely volatile right now. The more I play the game, the more depressed I become. It feels like the game has devolved into a single launcher, followed by 50-50 mix-ups, and that's it. The game needs systematic changes more than balance changes, in my opinion." Then Twitter user Buffalo retweeted a clip of Arslan discussing this on stream, and the GOAT retweeted it personally.
And then 50-50, and then it's dead, bro. This is Tekken 8. It's just too bad. What is this game, man? What is this game? One launch and then you have to guess 150-50 and then you are dead.
And while this isn't a huge stage, just look at the clip again. Kuma is backed up to the wall, manages to get a bit of space behind him, and launches to carry all the way to the other side. The knockdown presents a 50-50, Brian risks taking the wall splat, and it's basically over. So this is what kicked off the whole discussion. And while some people argue that Arslan was just salty about some loss or another, we have to remember that this guy stands atop the Tekken World Tour rankings for the second year in a row. He's been the most consistent player out there at the biggest events on the tour, and even he feels it's too volatile. And some of his colleagues agree with him. The same day, Kakoma quote tweeted with his own take saying that the 50-50s are excessive, that we all paid $80 to gamble, and that we are all in Las Vegas first floor. Kakoma also notably has a better Tekken World Tour ranking this year than last. To quickly clarify, in fighting games a 50-50 is when a player is forced to react to two possible incoming attacks, and since each requires a different kind of reaction, it's important to get it correctly or of course you get punished. For a lot of players, both pro players and high-level ranked players, this pattern of launch, wall carry, 50-50 is becoming a little bit too predictable, but also too dominant. We also didn't really talk about heat, but the chip damage and safe pressure that this new feature to Tekken adds exacerbates the problem. It also increases combo damage, and for some characters gives them access to even more mix-ups. This video isn't going to be a deep dive into fighting game mechanics though, so if you're interested in that, I'd recommend checking out a channel like FeedEx or Main Man Sui. They actually do drill down on these things, and you can learn a lot if you're interested. The point of all this is simple. If you can defeat somebody by launching them, wall carrying them with a combo, and then hitting them with a 50-50, then your opponent gets about 2 chances to play the game. The first is in the neutral before they get launched, and the second is when they're at the wall staring down the barrel of a 50-50. Now, in fairness to developers, in that last clip, Brian does have one last chance to make that final slice of HP work, but he does get tagged. Whatever your opinion on Tekken 7, the neutral didn't look like that. It was a far more evasive game where poking and backdashing were very effective, especially on infinite stages, which no longer exist in Tekken 8. If anything, T7 leaned more towards inaction, especially since so many top-tier characters were excellent with punishers. So I get why Bandai Namco would want to move away from that. Now, some people prefer that style of play, and that's totally fine. I think both have their advantages. The argument is this then: Tekken 8's reliance on 50-50s and the heat system is not only tiring for top pros, but it creates more competitive variance than in Tekken 7. The second part about competitive variance felt instinctively true to me, just having watched a lot of Tekken this year, but I decided for fun to go back and actually compare the final top 20 for this year and last to see really if there was any merit to it. Many players in this year's top 20 were also in last year's. Still, there were 7 players in this year's top 20 who weren't ranked in the top 50 in 2023. When you actually look at the names though, it starts to make a lot more sense. Some of these players just weren't able to travel the year previous. You can go look at their histories and see that they weren't going to big events, but they were poised to break out. On the other hand, there were events happening on opposite sides of the world on the same weekend in some cases, so players split up, and you don't have all the best players in one location. So it makes sense. Other names are absolutely ones you would recognize if you followed Tekken 7, but they just fell short for some reason or another. In other words, I don't think you can look at this year's top 20 and say that it's evidence of increased variance in Tekken 8. So what are the chances that massive changes hit the game before Tekken World Tour? I'm gonna say 0, and I have some evidence. Tekken 8 also received a balance patch on October 28th, and as I had supposed in the previous Tekken video, there were very minimal light touch changes. Dragunov got some light nerfs, as did Elisa. Nina got away basically unscathed, and there were lots of other top tier characters that had like no changes at all, like Feng Wei, Jin, and Yoshimitsu. I think that while Dragunov probably slides down the tier list a bit as a result of these changes, it's hard to see top pros who mained him all year suddenly swapping out Dragunov for Jin or Feng or something. Christ, I'm surprised this patch didn't nerf Devil Jin somehow, although they did finally fix the bug where the timer keeps ticking when he rage arts Heihachi. Nice. Again, I wasn't expecting much with Tekken World Tour Finals set to go down in December, but now this is the landscape we'll see when the best players take to the stage in Japan. For some people, this isn't good enough, and I definitely sympathize. But this is probably the consequence of trying to balance a competitive game and a casual one. And if it were up to me, I'd rather see these great players finish out the season playing the characters that they had mained all year rather than some last-minute swap to a character that's perceived suddenly as overpowered like Feng Wei or Nina. Now, I've spent a lot of time in this and previous videos challenging the decisions made by the developer. But in this one case, I do have to give them some credit. In the last Tekken video, we talked at length about the monetization, which blew up as a result of the paid DLC stage Genmaji Temple. Bandai Namco did eventually hand out 500 Tekken coins in-game when you log in. They're now available for about 1 month. They also added that pass owners will get the next stage DLC for free. The coins that they give you are also enough to just buy the Genmaji Temple stage if you want. Again, the overall structure that we dislike is still in place, and there is a ticking time bomb potentially down the road. If they do implement actual loot boxes, the game will be even more casino-like. But at least we can all get the stage now, so I have to give props to Harada-san and the team for that. And it's a little bit of good news in an otherwise tough moment for the game. Review scores aside, when your top players voice their opposition to the game's design and development philosophy, it can be a tough moment. Let's remember, Tekken 7 spent 2 years in arcades only before the home versions were actually released for PC and console. This was a testing process, and pro feedback was seemingly a critical part of it. But with year 1 of Tekken 8 out of the way, it seems kind of unacceptable for the game to spend an entire other year still getting its bearings. For now, Bandai Namco has effectively postponed this question until at least the holiday season. But in the new year, players and pros alike will be watching to see how exactly this game changes.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.